Hello everyone, greetings to one and all. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about an important concept called code to data. I will also use this opportunity of explaining this concept and introduce you with our first set of ABAP on HANA syntaxes, which are very vital and significant for me to explain this code to data concept. Now, what is code to data concept? Now, code to data is one of the fundamental or key concept for SAP to move into this ABAP on HANA paradigm. So this ABAP on HANA paradigm is supported mainly due to this code to data concept. Now this concept brought a paradigm shift in a developer's perspective. Now how did it bring a paradigm shift? Like few syntaxes, what we use as a developer helps us to understand this concept with more clarity, which we'll be seeing in some time. This concept is realized like this code data concept is not something that's readily available for us if you are coding on an HANA platform. This is more realized when the developer use this concept during coding. Now I will explain this and we will discuss more in detail about how a developer can use this code to data concept. But before that, on a high level for a pictorial understanding, let's see on the left side, we have the data is being pushed to the application layer. So whatever calculations you write in your coding platform is basically happening on the application layer. So for example, if you are having say 1 million or 2 millions of data and you want to compute certain logic on that particular data, the data is first taken to your application layer, calculation is done there, and then the result is displayed. Whereas on the right side in the HANA database, using this code to data concept, your code is pushed down to the data and the computation happens on the place where the data is present. So in short, imagine moving some 2 million data from your database to the application layer or moving few lines of code from your application to the database. Which is easier? Obviously the second one. So that's the reason this calculations done in data layer is always preferred, and that's why it's one of the key concept, or this is one of the key concept that brought a paradigm shift in our HANA. Or in other words, this is one of the key concepts that can be used for a developer during his development life cycle so that he can utilize the code data concept which is present in our HANA database. Now, let us discuss about the syntaxes that we are going to discuss today. We are going to discuss about two key syntaxes, case, end case, and calculations in the select query. So these two syntaxes can help us understand more about this code to data concepts. So we'll get on to the demo part. So in today's demo, I have already written the program just to save time. If you see this first part, okay, the old syntax part, what we are doing, my requirement is very simple. I need to fetch the entries from VB table. Now based upon VB which is the document category, I am defining the document type as class A, class B, and class C, and I am multiplying the value of the net value of this particular order based upon my document category. If it is A, I am multiplying it with 2. If it is B, I am multiplying it with 3. And if it is C, I am multiplying it with 4. And the result is displayed. Now, if you take in case of this particular query, you see, I fetch it into an internal table. Then I loop into the internal table. And then I perform the calculations and I perform the classifications here inside this loop. This is our old syntax. So this is also part of our before HANA period. Like before HANA, we were doing our coding in our ABAP application layer like this. Now, after the HANA came into picture, and after the introduction of modern syntaxes, which is very much applicable on ABAP and HANA databases, our code to data concept was brought into account. Now, for example, this is the new syntax that I'm talking about. So in this new syntax, if you see here, this entire lines of code, which is around like 40 lines of code or 30 lines of code, is just got compressed into this 10 lines of code or say 15 lines of code. Now, how did we do it? We wrote the case statements directly on the select query. You see here. And the calculations also happens directly on the select query. So this calculations here and this classification or calculation here happens directly on the data layer. So irrespective of the number of data we have, these calculations and these operations happens on the data layer, due to which we are making use of the code to data concept. So these two syntaxes in specific gives us a vital advantage of understanding the code to data concept, and at the same time it also helps us in introducing the modern syntaxes concepts. So as you see here, now based upon this code, I'm going to run the program and I'm going to show you the results of these two. Now, apart from the case statements and calculations, there are also other parts that are introduced here as part of modern syntaxes. Like here, inline declaration. This is another part, a feature that is introduced as part of modern syntaxes. And if you see here, whenever you're using modern syntaxes, you have to refer it with an at variable, and the fields must be differentiated with a comma. Wherein in old traditional syntaxes, you don't have that comma and the field has to be introduced before. The data must be declared before upfront. So all this now, even without this declaration, okay, if you see, let me comment all the declarations here. Even without this declaration, you can see this code runs smoothly. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to execute this code. Okay, I'm just going to uncomment this code and I'm going to execute this just to explain you how tedious this code is and how vital is our code to data concept or the modern syntaxes that's helping in case of a developer lifecycle. Let me place a breakpoint here. I'm executing it. If you see here, I have to run the select query first. It has fetched 294 entries. Then the loop has to run for 294 entries. And finally, the loop will run for 294 entries and finally it will fill the data at gt underscore display. So there are two internal tables that gets populated and one internal table that shows the base data and another internal table is filled based upon the calculations that's happening inside this loop. Whereas if you come into this particular code where gt underscore new, just with a single execution of this query, I am executing, I got all these results that I got through the previous lines of code. And the prime advantage here is the calculation is happening on the database. When I say calculations, both the value calculation and the order type classification, both happens in my data layer. So due to which we have a massive advantage in the performance, and as a developer you have a great advantage in lesser lines of code and having the expected results in a quicker manner. Now if you check the results of this, both are going to remain the same. Okay, so I hope both these examples gave you a clarity of how the modern syntaxes supports the code to data concept. And moreover, the code to data concept is more realized based upon the developer's skill set on how he uses the modern syntaxes through which you can utilize the code to data concept in HANA databases. And this is how your expertise level on ABAP and HANA gets increased. So thank you for your time. In the next session, I'm going to come up with more key technical concepts. Thank you. Peace and blessings to one and all.